about. Question, how many people here are already diagnosed? So you guys are gonna teach me. And I'll be honest with you, and I mean that seriously, because it's different having your hand in the pot than it is being on the other side of the bench. You guys have been through a lot. So there's a couple of things to go over and just talk about things that maybe weren't discussed before. And most importantly, the thing that I want to go over with everybody today is you were diagnosed, those of you who were diagnosed with cancer. It's not the end of the world, and believe it or not, I'm gonna say this, but you are probably one of the luckier, or maybe the luckiest people who have that diagnosis having the C word, okay? Everybody else who has lung cancer, prostate cancer, those people are eventually in the past tense. So this is a disease that a lot of people can survive. Unfortunately, some people don't. But what I want to talk about, well, a couple of things in terms, we'll go back from the very beginning in terms of treatment options. The other thing I want to talk about is quality of life. How do we improve your quality of life after the diagnosis? Okay? So, does anybody want to talk about options first, diagnosis? Where would you guys like to start?
Options.
Options, okay, good.
It's a long list.
So let me give you actually a little background about me, just so you know where I'm coming from, all right? I did my undergrad at Berkeley in electrical engineering, then I did my PhD in laser engineering, and then after that I did a couple of, if any of you have had LASIK before, the crystal inside of it is my design. That was one of the things that I got to do. And then I went to med school and residency in urology here in Florida. Why am I mentioning this? Very simple. I come at this from an engineering standpoint. You're going to hear about a lot of treatment modalities in the community. There's only specific treatments that have been proven to be effective, okay? I'm not saying that the other ones aren't effective. I'm just saying when you look at statistically, which will give you the best results, there are very specific ones that have been designated by, if anybody here has heard of the NCCN. Okay, the NCCN guidelines. Okay, good, this is great, let's talk. There are big cancer centers in the United States, okay? For example, you've heard the names, Sloan Kettering, Moffitt, UCLA, UCSF, okay? These big institutions are what we call tertiary referral centers. All the cancer cases typically get shuffled or kind of filtered over to those institutions. So what? Well, they're also academic institutions, and what they do is they go ahead and they apply different treatments based on the pathology of what cancer, what kind of pathology you have, and they've done multiple studies showing, hey, if we did this to you, what would happen? If we did this to you, what would happen? And they did these long longitudinal studies showing that. And based on that, then we've established what we have is the NCCN guideline, meaning what? If somebody comes to me and says, hey, doc, or did a biopsy and he comes back with prostate cancer, right off the bat, we have a sheet and there's a flow chart. It's already been designated based on your specific type of prostate cancer, what has been proven via evidence-based medicine, not my opinion, okay? I really do believe that you take your opinion out when you're talking about somebody's life and dealing with cancer. I owe you as a physician to give you the most reliable solution. So, and based on that, there's formulas on what needs to be done. So, for example, if you were diagnosed with what we call high-risk prostate cancer, what is high risk? What does that mean? That's anybody with a Gleason 8 or 9 prostate cancer. Does everybody know what their Gleason score is or was? Okay. So based on that specific Gleason score, do you know how that number comes about? You understand what the first number is and what the second number is? Okay, good. Based on that pathology, that lets us know how aggressive is the cancer. Okay. Now that we know how aggressive is the cancer is, we need to adjust our treatment accordingly. Which is why, for example, a high-risk person, right off the bat, the first thing I say is, irrelevant of what you choose, the survival rate has shown that you need to take some kind of androgen deprivation therapy. It doesn't matter. Whether you choose surgery, whether you choose radiation, whether you choose radiation with brachy, you need to get androgen deprivation therapy. Why? Because a high-risk cancer is a sneaky cancer and it loves to run out of the prostate and become systemic. Once it becomes systemic, the only way you can treat it is with androgen deprivation therapy. Now, what is androgen? Do we know what androgen deprivation therapy is?
No.
Chemical castration.
Excellent. You know what? That's exactly what it is. But what is it doing?
It stops all your testosterone.
Yes. And the way it does it is all of us, if you all know the Lupron injection, okay? We all have it naturally in our body, by the way, something similar, okay? Except it's pulsatile in our body. And when it's pulsatile, it tells the testicle to make more testosterone. When I give you a long-lasting injection, it becomes continuous, and that has the opposite effect. It causes a shutdown, okay? Why is it so important to kill testosterone?
Testosterone fuels prostate.
It is the open buffet, it's the sap, it's the sweet tomato of prostate cancer. You're absolutely correct to do that. So we give you androgen deprivation therapy, okay? Has anybody moved into the category from castration naive to castration resistant? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, let's talk. Castration naive means as long as you're getting the injection, your testosterone remains below 60, and you do not have a consecutive increase in PSA levels. Meaning what? Your body is still responding to the shot, okay? Well, at some point we found that, guess what? The cancer gets tricky and it doesn't really care that much about how much testosterone you're making because it mutates and it finds another fuel instead of the testosterone. So those of you who are still in the castration naive phase, which means you respond to castration, means your doctor about every 3 to 6 months is getting a PSA. Okay? And we're watching a trend to make sure it doesn't start to creep up. All right. I said the word PSA. Everybody know what PSA is? I know it sounds oxymoronic, but what is it? That is the definition. You're absolutely correct. It's basically a marker that only the prostate emits. So for those of you who've had radical prostatectomies, do you know what your PSA should be? And if it's not 0, that means there's something that's prostatic tissue in nature outside of the prostate that's producing it. Nothing else in the body creates PSA. So then that takes us, if we step back for a second, okay, we know our pathology, we have a general idea of these treatments. What treatments are you guys interested in talking about? Or have you had that you want to know the side effects? Because I'll tell you this. Anybody get radiation? Okay. What did they tell you the main side effects of the radiation were?
Continence, urinary tract, ED.
And some ED. Okay. That's true.
Secondary cancer.
Secondary cancer, did they tell you what the rate was? 8% increase after 12 years. Okay, that is true. So I always like to look at it like a mortgage. For those people who had to decide between radiation and surgery. Radiation, you pay little upfront, and then you have to deal with consequences later on. Surgery, you deal with a lot upfront, and you deal with little later, okay? And each one, this is a very personal conversation that it depends on your personality and what you're willing to tolerate and what your priorities are. And they both work effectively. So let's just be clear. They both work very effectively. The reason why I asked about the radiation, the side effects, it's something that the radiation oncologists don't see. Because it happens about 7 years after. By then, you're way past seeing your radiation oncologist, okay? Just so you understand, so when you radiate the bladder, or when you radiate the prostate, It's bladder, if you've seen, if they've shown you a model, I wish we had one. Think of a train. It's bladder, prostate, base of penis, okay? When they radiate the prostate, they've gotten very good about targeting it very accurately. And how accurately they target it, there's a lot of fancy names for it. Cyberknife. Fancy name for, we're cutting it out like it's with the precision of a knife, okay? Which means it's just very specific on how it's being targeted. But in the end, it's all radiation, okay? Now the radiation, at times, will hit a couple of areas. Right behind the prostate in a man is the rectum, okay? Some people will have a proctitis, an inflammation of the rectum and an irritation, okay? Some people, the radiation will hit their bladder, and they'll get an irritation of the bladder. Some people, that irritation will turn into something we call radiation cystitis, where actually the bladder, the vessels become very friable and start to leak. That happens 7 years out. Okay? So, why am I mentioning this? If at any point you start to see, for those of you who had radiation, that you're not peeing as well as you were, okay? Or you see bleeding, it's not necessarily something for you to be alarmed about, but what it is important is that you go ahead and get it evaluated, okay? And to answer your point with regards to the incidental carcinomas, if you see bleeding in the urine and it's been a couple of years, yes, you do want to get that evaluated to make sure that it's nothing else that's causing the bleeding, okay? Now, let's go over to the surgery arm. Anybody get surgery? Okay. How you feeling? So I'm a surgeon, so you're gonna think I'm gonna have a bias. I'm gonna be 100%, I'm gonna tell you the truth about both ways.
If the patient has radical prostatectomy,
Yes,
do they need to take hormones?
excellent question. I'm gonna take you back to what your pathology is. It has been proven people with certain Gleason scores have to take it. Okay? Meaning, when I say have to take it, meaning it improves your survival. Nothing in life is have to. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. We don't have to do anything. Okay? But it improves your survival. Now, there's some guys out there who, like, the hot flashes are intolerable. Okay? And the fatigue is just too much for them. Alright? There's different off-label, and let me be clear, it's an off-label treatment for somebody with high, for example, is anybody here on Casedex by itself? Okay, okay, so they'll do Casedex, biglutramide, which by the way, is an oral testosterone androgen receptor inhibitor. So the Lupron injection prevents testosterone from being made. The biglutramide, the Casedex, that whole family sits on top of the receptor, and even if the testosterone wanted to attach, it can't, it's blocked, sitting on top of it. Utilization of it by itself is actually off-label, okay? But we found that there's actually been an arm, there's a study, and by the way, I want you to hold me to every single thing I say. Single thing I say, there's a randomized control trial from a big institution confirming it, okay? That's shown a significant improvement in survival when you do combination, androgen deprivation and biglutramide. But we do it sometimes for somebody who cannot tolerate it, and it's affecting his quality of life a lot. Yeah. All right. Other side effects, for example, and this goes for both the surgery and the radiation. Everybody hears about the ED, everybody hears about the incontinence, okay? I can tell you, as a man, I can't think of two worse things I want to have, to be honest, all right? But there's a good news to it. If there's one thing a urologist can guarantee you, is that you can have an erection, okay? Why am I saying that? First of all, we have to understand what's the cause of ED from either the surgery or the radiation. It's the exact same thing. The nerves that control your erections actually travel on the wall of the prostate. Okay? Anybody heard the term nerve sparing surgery? Okay. All that really means is when they're carving out the prostate, they try to push the nerves a little bit to the side to leave you a couple of nerves so that you can actually still have an erection. Okay? Now, how generous you are in pushing the nerves to the side depends on your Gleason score. Okay? If you're a Gleason 8, you're not going to be generous because you know Gleason 8 likes to travel outside the prostate. You're going to take a good, nice margin, and then there's a good chance you're going to have ED. If you're a Gleason 6, yeah, it's okay. It's usually confined, as long as on the biopsy or the MRI, if you got one, it's confined to a central location, they can go ahead and remove the nerves. So surgery can damage it, radiation can damage it. All right, so the nerves are gone. And then the big vein that drains the penis when you're having sex, that one as well. That one gets damaged in either procedure because the beams have to pass by it and the surgery has to come cut right off through it. Okay? What can we do? What we can do is a couple of things. None of these are silver bullets, but if you really want to have an erection, it can happen. So, number one, every single person who we start on radiation or surgery, we start something called penile rehab. Okay? What is that? We want you to take a Cialis pill every other day, immediately after this procedure. If you had radiation, immediately when it's done. If you had surgery, once the fold is out. Why? There was a couple of studies that found out the penis is just another thing that if you don't use it, you lose it. The average, and they did a measurement study, the average man loses a centimeter, about half an inch, of length and about 10% of girth after a couple who does not take a PDE5 inhibitor, Cialis, Viagra. If you don't take any of those, we found that there's a decrease. So one of the first things we say is, if you are still interested in having your sexual function or maintaining it afterwards, take the pill. Even if you're not having sex, I want blood going to it. Okay? I don't want fibrosis to kick in. All right. You do that. Comes time to have sex, and some people remember the main driver of sex and libido is testosterone. So a lot of people who are on the androgen deprivation therapy, one of the things they complain about, I don't even want to do it anymore. And we know why. Okay? But there's other things that can increase your desire. Let's say you have the desire, everything's great, the mood is right, and you want to have sex, but you still can't get up. Okay? The pills aren't working. The next thing is there's a shot in the penis. Probably one of the most unpleasant two words that have gone together. Okay? What does that shot do? The same basic chemicals that's emitted by the nerves that were damaged, this is a concentrated formula of that. So if the nerves are gone, I'm gonna now do the job of what the nerves do. Okay? And you give an injection in the penis. Okay? A lot of people, it works great. A lot of people come back and even just the thought, Doc, I'm not putting a needle in my penis. Been there, been through a lot of life, I don't want to do that. Okay? Option number 2. It's a gel that goes into where your urine comes out. Muse. Have you heard of it?
Muse.
Yes, it's called Muse. Okay. What does this do? It's the same thing that's in the injection, except it's in a liquid form and it goes through the head of the penis. And the main difference is that you'll see is when you use it, the head of the penis will get engorged real quickly and gradually the penis itself will get bigger afterwards. Okay? Every single thing a doctor does to you has a side effect. Even this conversation with me today will have a side effect on you. Okay? Just to be clear. The main side effect of the shot is obviously the shot. The main side effect of the Muse is sometimes it burns the inside of the penis. Okay? So now I get a guy that's like, you got me in the mood, I'm good to go, and I put a gel in, now it's like my penis is on fire. This isn't working out for me. I have a couple of guys like, this is worse than Nom all over again. Okay? Okay, that's not working out. Then we come to the end-all solution, all right? And this is not for everybody, but it's an option. That, by the way, every single thing I mentioned to you right now is all covered by Medicare. None of this is fancy specialist stuff like that we do. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because Congress has decided that men have the right to have sex. Women after breast cancer do not have the right to get implants. Just to be clear, but men have the right to have sex. There's a little bias in Congress to do that. Now, that being said, what do we do? What do we do? All right. Let me step back for a second. How do we have erections? Okay? It's a visual stimulation, it's a tactile stimulation, the nerves get excited, it sends chemicals to the penis fills up with blood, the veins trap the blood inside, and you get an erection. The whole point is, in your penis right now, you have two pontoons. All right? Those pontoons fill up with blood. What the last option that guarantees you an erection is a penile prosthesis. Anybody hear about it? Well, fine then, I'll be redundant.
Everybody was there.
No. And basically what it is you replace the natural pontoons that fill up with blood in your body with a water pontoon. Literally, that's what it is. And what happens is you have a pump. Anybody have kids in the 80s that had the Reebok pumps? Remember that shoe? You pump it up and from the front? It's the exact same mechanism. It's exactly what it is. You have a pump that goes in your scrotum. So the only way somebody would know you have it is you have 3 testicles. Okay? It's a third one. And there's a little reservoir that we put deep in your pelvis. You don't feel it. You pump it up. When you want it, it fills up the pontoons like blood would. You get a full erection. When you're done, you push a button that's on top of the button. Honest to goodness. Push the button, and it comes down. Okay. The only difference between this and your previous erections is, before, when you had an erection and you orgasmed, you were done. You'd have to stop, unless you were 18 and you could keep going, all right? But as you get older, it's like, okay, you gotta stop, take a breather, and then you can go back again. This one, you're not done until you push the button. Okay? Needless to say, there's a lot of nudist colonies and swinger groups in Tampa that this is a hot topic here to do that. That being said, that's how we deal with the erections. Any questions about the erections? I think that was more about erections than you wanted to know.
Does that give the orgasm for the man?
Orgasms are controlled by a completely different set of nerves. So you will have orgasms. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the orgasm nerves are controlled in a different pathway completely. So you do have complete orgasms. You obviously won't ejaculate.
If you don't have any sensitivity, how can you have orgasm?
So that's actually a very good question. Did you get radiation, sir? No, okay. So sensitivity comes from a different set of nerves. All right, so there's nerves that cause the pontoons to inflate, and there's a different set of nerves that have a different pathway through the body for sensation. Just because you had the surgery, most of the time, unless they took a huge margin and they damaged the pelvic floor, most people still have sensation. Sensation does not go. Now, if there was no penile rehab, and there was atrophy, and the penis shrunk, sometimes that can affect the penis and the nerves. Because you didn't use it, then you lose it. That's where that comes into play.
In addition, would you think that if you lose the brain-penile connection, that occur whether for emotional or chemical?
So you bring up a beautiful topic. Even if your nerves are still intact, a lot of people have gotten this C diagnosis, cancer diagnosis. Once they get that diagnosis, it has a psychological effect. You're 100% correct. Most guys aren't in the mood to have sex. And that's normal. And that's why, well, this is the reason why I hope that why we're here today, is because I want to prove that there is life after this. And we can't keep living. Because this can get you in a funk. Absolutely. Yes, sir, please.
You mentioned very briefly, loss of libido,
Yes.
which is a big deal.
Okay.
It's not a brief Passover.
Oh, I'm coming back to it, I promise.
Basically, when you have no libido, what you're talking about is just going through the motions. You couldn't care less about this stuff.
True.
You know, I mean, you just totally change. You stop even looking at women like anything other than, I mean, look at a Corvette, you appreciate it. And, you can look at a good woman and maybe appreciate it, but it doesn't go beyond that.
Can you summarize this question, because I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hear it.
Well, and he brings up a good point. If you're in a situation where you're in the chemical castration category, you have no testosterone. And if you have no testosterone, your libido's gone. So what is the point of everything I just said? Okay? There's different categories of people. Number one, okay? There's people, not everybody's on androgen deprivation therapy, especially if you're a medium risk or low risk prostate cancer, they're probably not. For the high risk people, I'll be honest with you, some people still have the desire, it may be weak, and it has to be associated with a lot of stimulation. That's one of the things the patients have mentioned. The other thing that has been brought to my attention is a lot of guys have come up to me and said, Doc, I just really not for me, it's for my wife. So it's kind of a two-way street. And I understand.
So instead of her faking, you fake.
You know, yeah, pretty much. You know, and their logic is, we did it for so many years for you guys. That's what I go with eyes. But, and this is again, as I said, this is a very personal thing, and it's very relationship biased. Because there's a lot of times that the guy's asking about erectile dysfunction, and his wife's sitting next to him, was like, even if you get it up, I ain't coming here, you're not coming near me, you better go find yourself the Starbucks girl. All right? So I've had that said multiple times. Yeah. So it's really it's a personal decision to do that.
Is there an option to take testosterone?
Remember I told you, I promised you I'm gonna tell you everything that's scientific and it's based on absolute evidence-based medicine? Okay. Society of Sexual Medicine has sent out a white paper statement. Not a randomized control trial, a statement based on expert opinion. Saying for low risk prostate cancer, you can give men tea as long as you watch close. You can replace, for low risk prostate cancer, you can replace tea as long as you watch it closely. That is not a study. Remember, I told you, I promised you I'd give you evidence-based medicine, okay? That is not a study, that is not a paper, that is expert opinion. Okay? So do with it as you wish, but there isn't anything substantiated behind that. Let's hit on the other big topic, incontinence. Everybody had to do Kegels? Did they tell you how to do the Kegels? No?
Yeah, we've discussed it. Just say that again.
Kegels.
Exercise.
The exercise.
The exercise. Okay, let's talk.
Yeah, can I ask a question before you go? How about the side effects of hormone shots? And how long will they last?
Okay,
And what is the most common?
okay.
Side effects.
Hormone shots. So the question is, what are the side effects of hormone shots? And what is the treatment, if any? And how long do they last? Let me answer your question. The side effects, and I love it when a patient comes with his wife, because I ask him, do you remember how she was when she went through menopause? No difference. Because why? What happens to a woman during menopause? Both her testosterone and her estrogen hit the floor. That's exactly what you're doing when you're getting a shot. You're literally put into male menopause. Okay? So yes, sir.
Is it the same with like hydroxylamide?
The glutamide.
Same deal?
The glutamide in terms of, it is, yes, to do that.
The side effects the same?
Of the shots?
Yeah.
Yes, they are, to do that. Because instead of making testosterone, you're just blocking the receptors. Either way, the body isn't getting the testosterone that's needed.
However, it doesn't have the systemic effect of Lupron. Lupron actually is not making testosterone, it makes the testosterone, but the receptor is blocked
Yes.
on the prostate. But the other areas like the muscle, the other kind of effect of testosterone, it's not blocked, is it?
Any testogen, so the definition of the glutamide or Casedex is called an androgen receptor inhibitor. Any receptor anywhere that accepts testosterone, it sits on it and blocks it.
So it's not just to the prostate.
No, it's everywhere.
Why would you be on that alone? I mean,
Go ahead.
if you have prostate cancer cells floating around in your system, you want to not have testosterone, because anywhere those cells are, they're getting testosterone, they're being fed, and they're multiplying.
You're absolutely right.
So why would you do Casodex alone?
That was my point at the beginning. The guideline doesn't say that. So if you're asking why do some people do it, the answer, and it comes back to what you had asked earlier, sir. The hot flashes for some people, everybody here in this room is different what you're willing to tolerate. Would you believe me if I told you I had some patients who, the second I told them, hey, after a prostatectomy, you're gonna have a Foley, they said, nope, I'm getting radiation. Just the thought of a Foley. So what everybody tolerates is different. So some people, the hot flashes are intolerable. They can't sleep, they're miserable, they get moody, they get depressed. Okay, the fatigue sets in and they gain weight. It can be miserable. So those people, they're basically telling you, doc, I'm not doing it anymore. Now you're getting into the disparity of, on the other side of the table being the physician. They're like, this isn't the best thing for you, but it's a free world. So give them the closest, the next best thing is individual therapy. Not guideline.
Individual therapy.
Just the Casedex, because it's usually 80, the Lupron plus the Casedex. By the way, this is in a situation of somebody who's a high-risk patient who's on that. Yes, sir.
Talk about testosterone. Why is it that prostate cancer is not more frequent in young men when the testosterone is way up and is so much present in people that are, well, average?
That's actually a beautiful question. Okay. That brings us back to what is prostate cancer. And that's where I wanted to talk about, initially when I asked you guys, what does your Gleason score mean? If I was to take every guy under the age of 40 and biopsy his prostate, almost all of them would come back with non-cancerous prostatic adenoma. Okay? What does that mean? The cells are there, they haven't mutated yet. The longer you are on this earth, the more chance you have of mutating. It's just naturally how things happen, okay? You have a continuous cell turnover in your body. All it takes is 2 mishaps in the DNA, and you get cancer. Interesting thing is, they looked at an autopsy. This is a study from the early 80s. They did an autopsy of, I want to say it was about 5,000 men, and they looked at their prostate, and they had already passed for other reasons. They found that about 30–40% of them had prostate cancer. But it happens so often at the end of life, by the time it shows its face, there's other things that take place first. Do that. So to answer your question, why does it not affect younger men? The cells haven't mutated. Testosterone does not create cancer. Testosterone is the food for cancer once cancer is present. That's the main thing, the differentiator. Okay? Yes, sir.
What are 2 or 3 things that cause that initial communication?
Whoever answers that question is the next audience. The only thing we can tell you right now, 100% is, it's genetic in nature. So, if somebody comes to me and tells me, Doc, my brother had it, my father had it, my grandpa had it, that person, I'm watching that off. Okay? And my patients who are men, I insist they sit down with their sons and talk to them about it. Okay? Again, quality of life, and I'm big on prevention. Yes, sir.
What kind of studies show regarding the length of ADT?
Excellent question. That's good. Please guys ask, this is the biggest topic in cancer. There's so many things to talk about. So, 2 to 3 years, depending on the nature of the cancer and how your PSA responds for androgen deprivation therapy. Then we like to give a hiatus. Why? If you have systemic cancer, or you have high-risk cancer, I'm continuously castrating you. Well, the cancer, the whole point of it is, as we've understood together, is you want to starve it. Well, if I starve it long enough, it should all be dead. Okay? So we like to give a hiatus to see what your PSA is going to do. And then the actual recommendation is observation. Okay? And if your PSA even blinks and starts creeping up again, then you go back. You start it again. Now let me give you another reason, and I hope all of you who are on ADT are doing this. All of you should have had a bone scan. Not a metastatic cancer bone scan, a DEXA bone scan. The one that ladies get during menopause. Okay? All of you should have that. Why? For, as we explained earlier, the same thing that happens to ladies is happening to you. You right now no longer are producing estrogen. Remember, all of us produce estrogen as well. Okay? That's normal for a male. Our levels are really low, but we produce it. Estrogen is necessary for bone health, which is why ladies after menopause have fragile bones. We gave you menopause by giving you this shot. So what we like to do is you get a bone scan to find out where's your baseline calcium level, your scores. And then either annually or biannually get a repeat one. Everybody on androgen deprivation therapy should be on calcium level supplementation with vitamin D. No ifs, ands, or buts.
How
And
many
this
units
1,200
of each?
of 1,200 of calcium and about 800 of D. It's a pill. If you go to Costco, it's the horseshoe, it's a horse pill that they have.
Caltrate.
Yeah, there you go.
One in the morning, one at night.
Did you know?
So, since we talked about combining Casodex and stuff. So I was on Eligard, which is the same thing as
Same.
Lupron. I was on that for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
Got me down to 0. And we stopped. And a year later, my PSA started doubling quickly. So I'm back on it. So I've read some stuff saying that it makes sense to add Zytiga. You heard of this?
I've heard it.
You haven't?
This is the first time I heard it. No, of course, no, sir, without a doubt.
I think the FDA just approved it. Have you-
So,
So is that a good idea? To do both the ADT and Zytiga at the same time?
I'm gonna answer your question in 2 ways. Okay, and it's an excellent question. These new medicines that he's talking about, they're a new set, remember, these are all pills you take. This isn't any huge surgery or anything, this is a pill you take. They found that, and this is important, just not producing testosterone or just blocking the receptor for some people isn't working. Because if the cells are mutated enough, like we said earlier, cancer doesn't care, it's gonna grow. So, they found that these pills go into the synthesis pathway for all hormones and block it at the very beginning, at its origin. Okay? So to answer your question, it is not a preference, it is not an opinion. There is a category, and if you look, I want to have, actually, for the next meeting, if I'm invited again, I'd love to come again. I'm gonna bring everybody a pamphlet, and if you tell me what your Gleason score is, we can go over and make an example of everybody. There's what they call a category 1 recommendation. Category 1 recommendation is a recommendation that has been proven by randomized controlled trials at multiple institutions. Depending on the kind of cancer, it is indicated, and it is a category 1 recommendation to use that. Not my opinion, it has officially been proven. That is the right treatment. So I have to know a little bit more of the details of where in the flow are you, but yes, that is 100%. And always remember, when I say androgen deprivation therapy, depending on what pathology you have, there is about a set of 4 options of what is androgen deprivation. Okay? And that all depends on your specific situation and what the doctor likes to administer. And they're all equivalent in efficacy. But yes, 100%. This is the new this is why I started the conversation initially saying this, out of all the cancers, this is the cancer that is the most friendly in terms of the dose, the medicines you have to take. Yes, sir.
Can you include in context of all the things you're talking about, a person's general health and condition, autoimmune diseases they may have, illnesses, age,
Excellent question. Okay. You're gonna be bored of me, as I keep saying, the NCCN guideline. I'm a stickler for evidence-based medicine. Okay. Let's say somebody's a Gleason 8 prostate cancer. Okay? The first question you ask, and the first bifurcation in the flow chart for what's gonna happen to you is calculate your life expectancy. Okay? Your age and your life expectancy. There's actually a table that we enter and number of comorbidities, presence of diabetes, how sick, how mobile you are, how active you are. Put that all together, and it gives us a score. It's actually called the Karnofsky score, if you guys want to look it up. And that gives, and it gives us an idea of your general health and well-being. The guideline literally says, if your life, depending on which prostate cancer you are, it asks you, is his life expectancy less than 5 years, less than 10 years? Then this is the treatment. Is life expectancy more than 10 years? Then this is the treatment. It changes vastly, to answer your question. Yes, it does. And because it's not right if somebody, again, I'm gonna come back to quality of life. If somebody's so ill and already bedridden, and now you diagnose them with prostate cancer, why are you gonna put him through the torture of all the other things? Why? It just doesn't make sense. There has to be a kind of humanity. That's why, as much as I'm talking about flowcharts here, it's also an issue of what works for you and your life. Okay? That's really what I hope you take home today. It's the diagnosis is here to stay. That's reality. Now, what can we do from where you're at today to make life better? Yes.
I started on ADP 25 days ago.
Okay.
With Xgeva. I had a second opinion at Moffitt last week.
Okay.
And they suggested that I not continue with Xgeva because of long-term effect of Xgeva. It was too early to start.
Agreed. You know why Moffitt tell you that? Who'd you see?
I saw Dr. Cole.
Okay, I trained up there, so I know those guys. I'm gonna tell you why. What he didn't tell you is, this implies statement. According to your pathology and the NCCN guidelines, that's not the right time to start this.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like prostate cancer, there's a million treatments. You don't wanna burn the big guns early, okay? You wanna do see if the more simpler solutions or the less aggressive medicines work first. If it works good, great. Leave that one as a big gun later on. If you got a target practice, you don't bring a tank. Start off with a bullet, work your way up, okay?
Follow-up question. What could you comment on early metastatic cancer, I had two bone mets.
Okay. What does that mean? Metastatic cancer.
And it means it's like 5.
Okay. Well, in the sense of when you say metastasis, we divide metastasis into two categories. Is it bone metastasis or is it organ metastasis?
Bone.
Bone metastasis. Okay. So you know, right off the bat, all the other cancers, when somebody tells you they have metastasis, the cancer is breaking down the bone. Prostate cancer builds up bone. Okay? So that's why, God forbid, may nobody ever be in this situation. People who have prostate cancer and don't know it, or they go untreated for many, many, many years, and I've seen this happen a couple of times. They come in and they say, all of a sudden, doc, I'm paralyzed from the legs down. Why? The bones in the sacrum and in the lumbar area built up so much that they started squeezing and pinching the nerves. And they become paralyzed, or they get what we call saddle paresthesia. The saddle area where you sit down on, that becomes completely numb because the nerves that come from there come from the lower back. Why does it go to the lower back? The veins for the lumbar and the sacrum are the veins that drain the prostate. The veins are the return system for the body. So if any prostate cancer cells jump into the veins, that's the first place they like to sit. Once you become in the metastatic category, now the question is this. This isn't a local problem anymore. This is a problem that's more systemic. I can see the ones in the bones on bone scan. It doesn't mean there isn't something somewhere else. Okay? So then this question now is, we need to starve this cancer first. Some people will tell you, some radiation oncologists will tell you, I won't even radiate you until I make sure that you respond, your metastasis respond to the androgen deprivation therapy. Okay? Then they'll radiate, because now it's source control. But if it's a really aggressive kind that's already metastasized, why would you go through radiation unnecessarily? Because you're already in that metastatic category to do that. So the name of the game now in this specific situation is starve the cancer systemically, because I don't know exactly where it is. And to go on that, it's not 100% true I don't know where it is. There are 2 PET scans that are out right now. I don't know if you guys have talked about it. There's billboards all over the time. Have you heard the word Axumin? A-X-U-M-I-N. That's one scan. And the one that's been, there's several studies that have come out in the oncology literature, and specifically in the radiation oncology literature, that shows Axumin versus prostate scans. The problem with the second one is it's only available in 5 centers in the country. So we have people who come to our office, we make a phone call to UCLA. We go to LA and they get the scan and come back. Okay?
What's that one called?
Processing. I'll send you the links. Okay? So, why is it important why is that important? These PET scans detect activity and have reached a point where they can detect even the slightest activity in areas that don't show up on bone scan. And that gives you an idea of where else the cancer could be. And that becomes extremely important in somebody who has recurrence. Because let's say let's say you had prostatectomy. This is where it comes in really important. If you had a prostatectomy and you have recurrence and your PSA is jumping up, all right. If you have that scan, it'll let me know. Is the cancer growing in the bed where the prostate used to be? Or is it something in the bone and spread outside? Why? When it comes time to radiate, I'm going to focus on where I saw it. If it's in the bone or somewhere else, radiation is not going to do anything. You need to starve it. You need to focus more on the chemical techniques, or the oral therapies. So the name of the game right now is starve it. Yes, sir.
So you use the Axumin PET scan to determine whether the cancer is still in the bed or has migrated to the bone?
It helps identify the location of activity. Yes, to do that. And that helps direct further treatment. Because remember, if you had a prostatectomy, radiation is still on the table. You can still get radiation. There are side effects. For every single thing I say, there's a side effect. Okay? But if you had radiation, well, you really don't, that's not an option anymore. But the other options are, for example, sometimes when they take out the prostate, a piece of seminal vesicle stays back. You guys know what seminal vesicle is? That's where all the prostate juices, when you ejaculate, are stored and they shoot up, okay? It's part of the prostate. When we take it out, it should all come out. But if a little piece stays back, when you get that scan, you'll see a growth in the prostate bed. Well, if you've already got radiation, you can't get more radiation, and that's because of the significant increase in risk of another cancer in the area, okay? That's where cryo comes into place, for example, okay? Everybody heard of cryo? Notice I didn't mention cryo as being a primary treatment, okay? I'm not saying you can't do it as a primary treatment. I'm saying none of the studies have shown it to be equivalent or better than radiation or surgery, okay? Where it has shown to be beneficial is in the guy who got radiation, has recurrence in the prostatic bed, and you can go in and cry it.
I just read that PSA test is not very accurate. And some, I believe it's in the UK, they developed a new PSA, a new blood test that is much more accurate than the current PSA test.
100%. So, PSA in the average guy in the community, not that accurate. You're right. Average guy. Some people have humongous prostates and they make a lot of PSA. And we try to do algorithms, they end up getting biopsies, they get MRI prostates, and we just have to prove that they don't. In somebody with prostate cancer, now it's a marker that it doesn't matter what the number is, it matters if it's going up or not. It's the trend, not the number. Okay? The English, and here, pretty much in the United States, we typically don't care what the people are doing on the other side of the pond. For a very specific reason. We think our medicine is better than everybody's. And one of the reasons why is everything we do is very heavy on evidence-based medicine. Okay? Meaning, all of our guidelines, you gotta prove it. I can't say, hey, here's a study for PSA or here's a new marker in the United States until you've done a long-term study and shown its true efficacy. When you prove it, then, and you do a trial, and it has to be replicated at somebody else's institution, you can't be the only one in the world who can have these results, then we buy into it. That's actually the beauty of our medicine. Yes, sir.
Are there any studies that show the emotional side effects of EEG?
So, this has come up a lot at the urology meetings. And every single time somebody tries to do a study, the enrollment is almost zero. Because men don't like to talk about their feelings. And everybody's wife will attest to that.
Mood swings, obviously.
That's expected. So all the data that we're talking about is extrapolated from female literature. It's basically literally female literature because the same thing is happening. And we just moved it over to men. It's hard to get a guy to talk about these things. That's why I admire all of you here for willing to come here and talk publicly and talk like this about it. This is great, actually, to you guys. So
We could probably have one session right on
just on that,
topic,
yeah.
and I bet you'd get a lot of feedback.
With hormone shots,
I think you're right.
would breast enlargement sensitivity be part of the side effects?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
10, 24,
sensitivity.
yeah, the sensitivity.
You cry.
Here's what, let me just share with you.
No, I'm talking about levels you get.
Yeah. 3 hormone shots Radiation. and seed implant. Combination of all of that.
Got the full Monty. Yeah. That is a common side effect. And especially the breast tenderness, right, to do that. So, and that really comes into play a lot with the people who are on beclutamide treatment.
Okay, but after the 3 shots, no more hormone treatment after that. So how long will those shots stay with you, or the side effects
So you have to know, so the shots come in different, combinations.
over 2 months period.
So you have the 2 month shots,
Yeah.
okay? So it lasts in your system for 2 months. So after that third shot, 2 months after, it's out of your system. To do this. And there's a chance, if you're tested, some people, their testicles, give it 2 months, they'll start producing testosterone. That's why, after a good 2 to 3 years, that's why they came up with the 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years, you do enough suppression where you can actually put a dent into the cancer. Do that. But it's a horrible shot. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've never seen a guy who's like, Doc, don't worry about it, it's great. No, it's miserable to do that. It's a necessary evil. That's how I would say it. Excuse me?
Yes, let me have one know how long. This gentleman had for three shots.
So you should be having to follow PSAs.
Yeah, I had already 3 of them, 0.2.
Now the question is it gonna stay?
It's been there for a year.
And we'll keep watching it.
Correct.
I always like to tell patients, once we have this diagnosis, we're married. You're gonna see me regularly, we're gonna go over I'm gonna nag on you, and you're gonna hate me for it, but it's only for your own good to do this. So it's a lifelong relationship.
It's only once a year.
It's 3.5, and I don't want to cut this off, I just want you to know that it is 3, and we can stick around.
I'm here for you guys.
Okay.
I emptied some time for my clinic today.
I'll keep quiet.
I just had a question. You mentioned radiation therapy and the operation. You haven't brought proton therapy.
Beautiful. All right.
That's what I have.
Good.
And I'm curious why it's never mentioned
It should
in
be.
all these meetings.
It should be.
Because I have no ED,
Uh-huh.
I'm old, so I can't go pee in the middle of the night, but I have no problem going to the bathroom, and I have no problem with sex.
Okay. So you bring up 2 things I want to hit on. Okay? Number 1, all of you who had radiation, and if you're not on, so if you have androgen deprivation therapy, your prostate shrinks. If you're not on androgen deprivation therapy, or even if you have had it and you're having lower urinary tract symptoms, meaning you're getting up at night, your stream is really weak, you have an option. There's something called UroLift, okay? Here's the thing, no doctor wants to touch your cut into your bladder. Anybody had a Roto-Rooter? No? Oh, you guys are lucky. Roto-Rooter is BPH, when your prostate gets too big, you can't pee, you're getting up at night and so forth, we carve it out. That's why we call it the Roto-Rooter, okay? Well, here's the thing. Here's your bladder, here's your prostate, here's the base of your penis. This is the difference between us and women. We have 2 valves to hold our urine. 2. One where the bladder meets the prostate, one after the prostate, okay? Whether you get radiation or you get surgery, well, if you get surgery, the first one's 100% gone, because that's exactly where we cut it. If you get radiation, either one of them can be damaged and it can get weak. So if you have lower urinary tract symptoms and you had radiation before, we used to tell guys, hey, you're just gonna have to live with it. Okay, actually, there's a good number of people who have suprapubic tubes draining their bladder up from up here or going to a tube, they're living with a tube all the time. The reason is nobody wants to go to a Roto-Rooter, because if you do a Roto-Rooter somebody who has radiation, you actually hurt the first valve. And it very well likely is the combination, where even if they're weak, the combination of the 2 valves that's keeping you dry. So if you knock one out, you can make the guy incontinent, and that's the worst thing you can do. Any guy, or most guys will agree, I'd rather me get up at night than be leaking and wearing a diaper. Okay? So there's a new technique that we do specifically for radiation, people who've had radiation, and I like to simplify things. For all intents and purposes, it's a zip tie.
So what?
Zip tie. Remember a zip tie? Yes, exactly what it is. Medicine made it fancy, but what it is we go in with a camera, and then we throw a zip tie across the wall of the prostate, and we scrunch it together, and it squishes the prostate. Squish, 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 squish. You're not cutting anything out, and you're staying away from the valve. It gives a pathway for the urine to flow and is no damage to the valves. Something just to keep in the back of your mind. Okay. I didn't forget your question about proton therapy. You are probably, I'm at about 13 patients right now. You're lucky because it's not that many centers have it. Proton therapy, it's very expensive. And you're probably the 13th patient that is extremely happy with it. That I know, okay?
Medicare covers that.
Yes, it is. And
You do have to go to, I went to Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, Florida, yes.
So you do have to spend time in Jacksonville.
Yes.
But everybody I talked to, and there were a lot of gentlemen there that, we all called it our radiation vacation because none of us had any side effects. And I talked to everybody going through the 39 treatments, and I haven't had any side effects after that.
True. So let me give you the literature on it, okay?
Proton therapy.
Yeah.
I studied it a lot before.
Well, for everybody, so everybody knows, okay? It's a different kind of radiation using protons, okay? The details are a little different.
When is it used?
For treatment, primary treatment.
Primary.
So if you come to me and, if you come to me and tell
I
me,
had the 39 shots of radiation, but it was after the prostatectomy. So you had the 39
So-
initially.
that's called salvage radiation. That's different. I'm assuming you had primary treatment was
Right.
proton.
Yes.
True. So if you come to me and tell me, we do a biopsy, you come in and you say, hey, we've got prostate cancer, okay? We go down the list of options, and when I say radiation, I give you two choices. I give you external beam radiation, and I give you proton therapy. And I'll tell you why I can say that.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why Medicare
The
covers it.
first urologist that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of them, that actually said we'd recommend proton.
Oh, yeah.
All the rest of them, it's not part of their group, they don't do it, and they don't want to lose the
Well,
income.
hold me to it.
So that's amazing.
Hold me to it. And here's why I'm gonna say this. Medicare is very evidence-based. Any procedure that Medicare pays for is a procedure that has been proven to be effective. Period. You made a statement. Medicare paid for it. Why? There has been a randomized control trial comparing people who got radiation and people who got proton therapy. In the 5-year survival study right now, it has been shown to have equivalent oncologic results as radiation. So what do I mean by that? The cancer guys, the number one priority is killing cancer, okay? And that is the number one priority. That's why we're doing all this. It has been considered to be equivalent. Period. If it's equivalent and it's proven to be equivalent, then yes, it is on your list. Okay? It should be. Okay? Here's the kicker. Typically for the affluent person who can go to Jacksonville or go to Wisconsin or the big centers who can have it. Because a lot of people have found that, especially when they're older on a limited budget, even if not, that expense of Jacksonville is a luxury. So.
So I'm glad to go there.
No, and I'm with you. And there's people, and it's a choice. And it is my job. And I always tell patients, it's my job to open the buffet. I'm going to give you every single option, and I'm going to tell you the risks and benefits of every option. The choice in the end is yours. Because, like I said at the very beginning of our meeting, the person's hand in the pot is not the same as the person standing watching.
Would you say the same about CyberKnife?
It's kind of radiation. It's a fancy word for just another kind of radiation.
Right,
It's the same thing as every EBRT, external beam radiation.
except it's short.
Just shorten this. That's it.
Would you have it on the approved?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So there's also a lot of marketing involved here. Calling it CyberKnife, it's external beam radiation. That's the kind of technology. It's proton therapy. That's the kind of technology. There's the surgery. That's a different thing. I don't like it when we start getting into all of the nuances that in the end really don't. Just so, to be honest about it, to do that. So, yes, I do give that option to a person who's interested. Here's the one thing I'm gonna tell you about the proton, okay? And by the way, NCCN guideline, 3rd page, in the new study. So the NCCN prostate cancer is moving so fast. There have been 3 updates in the last 2 years. Your question about that new medicine that came out, that was in one of the updates. There's a whole new update for that. Proton therapy, the 3rd page says, the spinal arm, randomized control arm has come out showing equivalent oncologic outcomes. What we don't know about proton therapy, because it hasn't been around long enough, is the long term.
It's been around quite a while,
But the numbers, so you need an N.
because in Loma Linda, they've been doing it since, what, 89 or 90?
True, but not,
20 years.
so in order for us to,
It's been around since 45 in Europe.
yes, oh, without a doubt, but they standardized it, I wanna say probably within the last 20 years, and it wasn't paid for. So it was left for the very affluent, and in order for you to prove something to be efficacious, you have to have a large N, number of people enrolled,
Okay.
to show that it's truly representative. Okay, so now we have that N. The long-term other effect that, and this, I'm literally quoting the NCCN most recent literature saying that the study has shown oncologically is the same. We are still following this. It's a study that's still going. It's not over. And we will report back of any significant differences between radiation and proton therapy. Okay, yeah, well, yes, sir, you have any?
Yeah,
Welcome.
are there any blood tests that can tell you if the prostate cancer is metastasized? And also, do you do transperineal targeted biopsy? Transperineal.
Okay. Is there a blood test? Nothing more than what we've talked about. It's the PSA and imaging, not the blood test, it's imaging. Peritoneal biopsies, yes, we do that. There's a time and place for it. If you do a normal, look, there's some guys who just don't want anything in their gush. It's just not for them. But guess what? Even with the peritoneal, you gotta put the probe and ultrasound detector in there anyway. But there's some people who are at a higher risk for infection that is a beautiful approach for them. And that is the time for it.
But can you do it targeted?
Oh, yeah.
Like the urine.
We're doing it right now at Maple Ranch.
The urine-
MRI fusion, yeah.
Uronav for transperineal.
Just did 2 last week.
Okay, great.
So Uronav is just, do you guys know what Uronav is?
No.
Okay. This is a new technology that's come out that I'm hoping if we get a study out that allows it for screening. Okay. You guys know when you do a 12-core biopsy, it's completely random. Completely random. And if you have a big prostate, there is nothing to say that that needle goes right next to the prostate and the cancer says hello to it and comes back out. It's completely random, okay? So there's some guys, their PSA is high, everything, it smells like a fish, it walks like a fish, everything is not right with it, right? And you do a biopsy and it comes back negative. Dude, so now there's this new MRI prostate that you get an MRI and you can literally identify the lesion on an MRI, okay? And this is my favorite technology because my character is I'm more of a sniper, not a machine gun guy, all right? I like being a sniper. The MRI tells you exactly where it is. Now, the MRI gets set up on this new machine called the Uronav, and then you have the standard ultrasound, which everybody here probably got. They overlap the 2 images. So now that I overlap the 2 images, now I can in real time shoot into the lesion, pull it out, and find out exactly what it is. And I can detect a lot more people. What's the problem with it? Medicare gives us a hard time, okay? Because it can be abused. MRIs are absurdly expensive, okay? So what does Medicare tell me? It tells me, look, if you can tell me this gentleman has had history of 2 elevated PSAs and a negative trust biopsy, negative standard biopsy, then you can have your MRI. Okay? Some people are getting away, they're paying cash and they're doing it, okay? There's some way, if you get an excuse, there's some people get creative and get an MRI pelvis, but they tell the radiologist, hey, focus on the prostate, and they can get it. That's not the way to go because it's a very specialized prostate. But yes, this is the future, and I hope that it becomes cheap enough where, and just screen people that way. I just cannot wait till that day comes. And that is, but right now, that is my preferred, if that person has met those conditions, that's my preferred. I always like to give people the option, hey, if you want to get it on yourself, it's gonna be cash, but the numbers I've been hearing are absurd. It's like 3,500, 4,000 to get the MRI. It's just unreasonable.
You say it has to be a negative biopsy,
A negative biopsy.
so no cancer at all?
Well, if they'll tell you, hey, if you got cancer, you know it's cancer. What do you want an MRI for? To do that, okay?
It's what they can't detect on the regular, right? And they can't detect the 12-point biopsy.
Yep.
There's no cancer.
Yep.
Then you PSA, then they come back and do that.
Yep. So that's what we call a negative biopsy. Everything came back negative.
That's what I.
What if you've had multiple negative biopsies? Does that still qualify?
Multiple negative biopsies and an elevated PSA?
Yeah.
Of course you should have it.
Well, I did,
Oh, yeah.
but I had to travel and looking for somebody to do it here.
To do that, no, we do it here, and it's one of the things that, yes, you should have it, because the MRI, the beauty of it is, we can sit and say, there's no lesion. There's nothing. You're fine, you just got a big prostate.
Would you accept an MRI from NIH?
Is there anything better than an
Not that I know.
Not that I know of either. Again, I'm a stickler for evidence-based medicine, and you just mentioned the mother place of all research and evidence-based medicine. Yes.
I had targeted, I had the MRI we
Yes.
were talking about, in Lakewood Ranch, targeted
Uh-huh.
biopsy. And I never had any previous negative biopsy. And Medicare and my insurance paid for the whole thing.
And so my point was Medicare. A good number of people that I deal with are Medicare. This happens when you're typically in the Medicare area. So those are that group. There are some private carriers that will pay for it. Like, for example, if anybody has TRICARE, oh God, that is the best insurance on earth. I'm not kidding you. TRICARE does everything for everyone for any time. It's the best. What branch, sir? Navy.
Write down prior service that you used, referring back to tanks.
Oh, yes, there you go.
With the development of new techniques for radiation now,
Uh-huh.
is the seed placement going out of favor?
Time and place for it. There's a time and place for it. Depending on your pathology, again, I'm gonna keep coming back to the same thing. And depending on your pathology, we come back and say, this pathology, one of the options is radiation plus seed. So the high-risk guys, is one of the options. Okay? It's not necessarily an option for some of the low-risk guys, or it's not as indicated an option. Okay? There's risks with everything to do that. And here's what I don't like about the seeds sometimes. I'm the urologist. Remember I told you some of the complications come 6-7 years afterwards? Guy comes in and he's like, I keep getting UTIs, dog. UTIs. It's not normal for a man to have UTIs. It's normal for a lady. It's okay for a lady. UTI, urinary tract infection. I'm sorry. It's not normal. What'd you have? Brachy? All right. They go in, I look at his prostate. The brachy kills the prostate around it. Well, what happens? They're leaving the seeds in there. The prostate shrivels up. The bloody seed starts to peek out into the middle of the urethra and starts to form stones and starts to cause problems. Then I have to go in like a fisherman and try to scoop out all the seeds and pluck them out to do that.
Where does HIFU fit in your list of procedures?
HIFU is currently nowhere on the NCCN level.
Still?
I'm not saying
approved.
it's getting there. It's getting there. It has, in order for it to come on the NCCN guideline list, it has to show it's equal or better than the other ones. I'm not saying it doesn't treat it, but is it equal or better, is the question. Yes,
Is the percentage chances of recurrence function of the initial cancer of the recidiv?
100%. 100%. That's why it's called high risk. That's why when you're Gleason 8, Gleason 9, It's high risk, which means what? Your cells are, or those cells are already pretty mutated, which means it's a wiry one.
So when you mentioned earlier that 7 years is kind of the average percentage.
That's where I start to see some of the side effects of radiation.
Sure,
To do that, yes.
But does that 7 year applies to aggressive or is it an average?
That's the average. That's the
So
average.
it could be like from 5 to 10 years? or-
Yeah, and it depends where you had it done, how many they did, how good they were at targeting it. There's so many things. It's just a risk.
Right.
It's my job to always tell you all the risks. I don't care if it's 2% or 1%. You gotta know. Because by golly, some people are lottery winners. They are 1%ers when it comes to this. Yes,
So
sir.
you've spoken a lot about high risk, in that intermediary category.
Uh-huh.
Like recently were 7, but half of the samples taken in biopsy all had cancer in them, either 6s or 7s.
So,
how aggressive would you recommend that you need to be when you're in that middle of the road?
so the first question is, they did a delineation. There's 2 kinds of cells, and it's different.
Okay, I have 1, 4, 3, and the other 2 were 3.
Okay, we always go with the worst one, okay? 4.3, the definition of that is unfavorable intermediate risk of prostate cancer.
And 3, 4?
Favorable intermediate risk. Treatment's different.
Really?
Treatment's different. We have found that we were over-treating all the 7s because some of the 3+4s are acting like low-risk guys. That's why these studies are continuously being done and updated. You believe me, this is for me. There's nothing that takes me more from my family and the weekends than reading on prostate cancer. How many studies are continuously coming out, really? So 4+3 puts you in intermediate risk, okay? You're the guy that you would do the surgery. Would you have? Did you have
I
treatment?
haven't done anything yet.
Okay,
I'm still in the study phase.
you're in study phase, okay. The world is your oyster. Okay?
How much do you weigh the amount of positive biopsies that came out? Like, a lot of times there's only like 3 out of 12. I had 6 out of 12.
So, was it targeted or fusion?
They were targeted.
Targeted biopsies, okay? So targeted biopsy means he was going straight into the meat of the lesion, okay? The more there is, it means there's more of the prostate involved, okay? What does it mean to me? Why is it important? If you tell me, hey, you have a good chunk of, the cancer is mostly on the left side of your prostate, okay? But that tells, huh? It was, okay. So let's say you chose the, surgery arm. When we're doing the surgery, when I'm on the left side of the prostate, I'm going to town. Okay? I'm not gonna be that caring how much tissue I leave for the nerves. I'll leave you everything on the right side, and all you need is one set going, but I'm gonna be aggressive on the left side. Because I need to get it out, because if it's a lot on the left side, that means if it's gonna jump out of the prostate or go somewhere, it's gonna be on the left side. So that's how it changes it. From a radiation standpoint, how he focuses his beam, where specifically it is, he'll put a little bit more focus and angle on the left side to do that. But when it's a larger volume, that's when, for me, I start watching you closely. Because I don't trust Nancy.
I've had multiple places read my slides.
Okay.
And 2 of them came up with the 4-3. One place, which is well known, one came up with 3-4s, no 4-3s. They put me on a lower risk side, but still do something.
It is to do something. And here's what I'm gonna tell you to that.
What is the PSA?
PSAs are in the like 7, 8 range.
Okay, less than 20, good. So here's what I'm gonna say to that. I'm a true believer in that there's an art in certain things. Basically, the guy who works on Fords all day, he may be able to work on a Chevy, but you should leave him with his Fords, okay? He's got the Fords down. The guy who, so for example, Moffitt, okay? Moffitt as a guy, he's dedicated his life to looking at slides of prostate. That's what he doesn't look at any other cancer, doesn't know about any other cancer, okay? His life is prostate cancer. I always like to have my slides read by specialist areas. So typically, my slides, I like to either have them read at Moffitt, or some guys who are from up north, from the Northeast, they want it done at Hopkins, that's fine, or UCLA to do that. And you know what? If usually Medicare or the insurance doesn't pay for that second opinion, it's enough. Sometimes they don't, it depends. It depends, not everybody, and not everybody. Yeah, to do that. Now, that being said, I always like to give the option, and based on their, it's multiple things coming back, where somebody can afford that and so forth. But then the question comes back to, which one are you gonna trust? Let's be honest. There's a human aspect to it, okay? I'm not gonna say just because somebody, if they're all equal prostate pathologists, they're all equally good. Nobody was blessed or anointed at some point to be the prostate guru, okay? But that being said, which one, this is my whole point, it keeps coming back to, I really believe it should be focused on you. Which one do you want to take? Are you a conservative person where you're like, I'm just gonna go with, if that's the worst diagnosis, you just nip it in the bud and we'll take care of that, soon that. If you're like, it's okay, I don't wanna worry about this, I'm optimistic, it's always half full, and you go with that, you go with the lower one, you're not wrong either way.
But you're lucky, sometimes you get the same results from both places.
That's
what I
now you're just bragging.
That's
How reliable is the 5K score?
What was the question?
How reliable is the 5K score? Let me put it to you this way. I wanna say maybe 60–70% of the time it was consistent, but I've had about 6 cases that the 4K score, so the 4K score is a guy who doesn't want to get the biopsy. Okay? Eventually we convinced him to get the biopsy, and then we did the surgery, and it turned out he had intermediate or higher risk cancer, and he completely missed it. Okay? And I'm gonna say something, go back to something I said earlier. I don't trust cancer. I don't take risks with somebody else's life. I want what is evidence, what I know will give me an answer. Until somebody tells me I have a screening that's 100%, I'm sticking with the best we have. So I'm not trying to dance around the answer, but I've seen it go wrong, and one patient for me who it goes wrong for is one too many. I'm just a little bit more conservative on that side. Yes, sir.
Real quick question about ADT. You
Yeah.
said you use a bullet rather than use a bomb in the beginning.
Yeah.
Can you tell me where Degarelix falls into that hierarchy?
Degarelix is a kind of ADT.
But where does it fall in the hierarchy of a bullet versus a bomb?
That's one of the standard ADTs. Remember I told you ADT, depending on where you are, there's 4 different options. It's never just Lupron or just that. There's always 4 options. It's one of the options for all the ADTs. Did you guys? That is the mother of receptor blockers. Okay, that one just knocks everything out. So, remember I told you guys about the guy who comes in paralyzed? That guy in ER, I order it on him. I want to stop it now, immediately. So, the Degarelix castrates you in an hour and 10 minutes. You go from full testosterone to nada. An hour and 10 minutes.
What's that called again?
Degarelix. You do that. And that's usually when I use it, it's a little on the expensive side, some insurance pay for it. So you see, I can't just do medicine. I'm playing this game of insurance companies. Okay? So I can sit here and give you a beautiful spiel about all your options. What's your insurance gonna pay for, and who do I have to fight with to get it done?
That doesn't change the 2 to 3 year time frame.
No, it's the same thing. It's a 2 to 3. It's just a different modality. Okay? You get a hiatus, everything else is in. It's just another kind of proven EDT.
Folks, it sounds to me like we're gonna have Dr. Ackerman come back.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.
Variation here, does this proton beam treatment truly, provenly, reduce side effects significantly? Isn't that the primary benefit?
So I'm gonna be honest with you. Anecdotally, the story he gave right now, I have seen it repeated multiple times. Anecdotally, the official studies haven't confirmed it, but I am optimistic. Okay? Remember, hold me to them evidence-based. All right? I'm giving you a disclaimer, anecdotally.
Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime, let me know. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Harvey. Yes. I was there, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was, when I was